When it came to choosing gear for my Appalachian Trail thru hike, I meticulously tested each piece before setting out on trail. Here lies before you the 10 pieces of gear that failed me on my way to Maine. Alright, gear failure number 1 was the X-Ped Mega Pillow. This thing failed on me on my very first week on trail. I would blow it up at night and it was going flat. The thing I love about the X-Ped Mega Pillow is its height and comfort. When you sleep on this thing, you get a great night of sleep because it supports my head, my neck. I have wide, broad shoulders, and it's the only pillow that provides me the comfort that I want and need. However, when it failed on me, I was afraid to get another inflatable pillow while on my thru hike, so I replaced it with the X-Ped Deep Sleep, right? So I had this sent to me after that first week of hiking, and I was just basically sleeping on my clothes bag at that point, and I started sleeping with a deep sleep. Now, at first, when I first got this pillow, you can see the height of it looks like it is the height of this. However, when sleeping on it, it does slowly start to lose its shape and form and winds up being very, very flat, not giving you the head and neck support that the Mega Pillow does give you. So eventually I purchased a new Mega Pillow and had it sent to me closer to the end of my hike to replace the Deep Sleep. Gear failures number 2, 3, and 4 was the rain system that I chose to try to keep myself dry on the Appalachian Trail. First, gear failure number 2, the Gear Swift's Dyneema Poncho. The reason why I wound up sending this bad boy home was because when I would put it on, it would only give me coverage down the middle of my forearm. Therefore, during freezing rain, the water would drip from the poncho down my arm into the gloves, making my hands cold, which was a no-go in February. Gear failure number 3 is the Frog Togs Extreme Light Rain Jacket. The reason why I wound up replacing this piece of gear and sending this home was because of the way that it cinches around my waist. I had precious camera equipment inside of my fanny pack, and I needed a raincoat that not only was going to be warmer than what this raincoat provided, but I also needed something that was going to help me protect the gear that was inside of my fanny pack. Gear failure number 4 was the 6 Moon Design umbrella. All right, this on the Appalachian Trail is almost a useless piece of gear unless you are in a wide open area, because the majority of the Appalachian Trail you are walking in the green tunnel with lots of things hanging right overhead, and this would hit and bump on every single one of those things, making it a very difficult piece of gear to manage and use while hiking in the rain. Now, what I replaced all of these pieces of equipment with was my Patagonia Torrent jacket. I wound up picking up this jacket at the NOC in North Carolina right after experiencing freezing rain on the Appalachian Trail. I needed something that was going to keep me warmer, that was thicker, and that was also open bottom so that it would help cover and protect my equipment better. With the adjustable sleeves, I also was able to keep my gloves on the inside of the jacket, and therefore no dripping rain into the gloves. And this piece of rain gear went with me all the way from there to the end of the Appalachian Trail. Gear failure number 5 was the Vessi waterproof gloves that I wound up purchasing. Now, these gloves, although they start out waterproof, if you're walking in rain for any period of time, let's say 2 to 3 hours, eventually they do wet through, therefore not giving me adequate protection. When I reached the NOC, I did add a pair of North Face gloves to my system, creating an outer shell, therefore protecting and keeping my hands dry and warm. Gear failure number 6 was my Amazfit T-Rex 2 Ultra smartwatch. I've owned this watch for going on somewhere between 8 months and a year when I took it out there on the Appalachian Trail, and slowly but surely the battery began to fail me after using it on a daily basis trying to track my miles and my hike, and I wound up just ditching the watch altogether, not even having a smartwatch and having to worry about something else that I needed to charge out there, and just sending this thing home. Gear failure number 7 was my REI Helix sleeping pad. Now, although that pad did make it through half of the trail, it did not make it all the way. So I wound up sending it home. My wife wound up getting a refund for the pad, as REI did honor, and I wound up replacing it with a Nemo all-season the Nemo Tensor all-season sleeping pad, which did wind up making it for the rest of the trail. The REI Helix sleeping pad failed me when I was sleeping in a shelter one night, and I found myself at 11 o'clock at night winding up on the floor having to re-inflate it, and again about 3 a.m. I wound up on the floor again. So I immediately needed to have something shipped to me, and the Nemo Tensor All Season was available with Prime shipping on Amazon, so I went ahead and grabbed one of these, had it shipped to where I was going, so therefore I wound up using this for the rest of the hike. And I was actually very, very impressed with this pad, and we'll talk about that more in a future video, but that is gear failure number 7. Gear failure number 8 was my fanny pack system. Now I'm a fanny pack guy because I liked having all my camera equipment right there in front of me. So I started out the Appalachian Trail with the Summit Thumb Thru pack. Now the reason why this pack failed is because of how the hip belt is attached. It's run through a channel at the back of the fanny pack, and the constant movement of hiking was making that pack do this right here, which is moving back and forth, and eventually wound up sawing through the top padding that held this pack to me. It did develop a hole here in the Ultra material, which I wound up patching on the inside and the out to try to keep water out of that pack as well. So I did wind up replacing that. Being a Zpacks backpack carrier, I decided to go with the Zpacks Fupa, which is the front utility pack accessory. Now this pack attaches directly into the Zpacks backpack, which I have. However, this is the very first one that they sent me, and within 3 days I had a seam blowout on the side, therefore not making it waterproof and not protecting my camera equipment, so that had to be replaced. They did send me an immediate replacement, and that Fupa wound up getting me almost all the way to Maine, but eventually from the wear and tear of me using the zipper opening and closing, the zipper wound up blowing out, and one of the side attachments right here wound up coming apart. I had to poke a hole through it, and you saw me carrying my Fupa inside of a Ziploc bag still attached to me to try to keep it waterproof until they got me a replacement. And they did wind up sending me a replacement, although I wound up replacing that system altogether. All right, gear failure number 9, and this is an unusual one. It was my merino wool underwear. Now, the reason why I call this a gear failure was because I went through several pairs of this, and the friction from my thighs would basically rub a hole on both sides of the underwear, making it even more susceptible to chafing, not because only my skin was exposed, but because of the extra material being frayed would cause even more chafing. So in Harper's Ferry, I decided to make a change. I went away from underwear altogether, and I wound up getting a pair of chicken legs. All right, so these chicken legs is what I wound up replacing my hiking short underwear combination with, because the chicken legs has a built-in pair of underwear right here. Now there's 2 ways you can do this. You can keep these in here and hike with them, which I did, and you can also cut these out of here and hike with them, which I also did with the first pair of these that I wound up buying. So I wound up going underwearless and using the chicken legs as my main hiking shorts on the trail. All right guys, gear failure number 10. This is the last one, and it is the biggest one. All right, this is the Zpacks Ultra Backpack. All right, this is the replacement pack that they wound up sending me because I had so many issues with my Zpacks Ultra Backpack on my thru hike that started first before I got to Damascus. All right, so let's go over the issues and the failure points of the Zpacks Ultra Backpack. All right, so the Zpacks Ultra Backpack main way that it is attached to your hip belt is through a carbon fiber stay that runs through the hip belt, the back of the hip belt of the backpack, and it attaches inside of what's sewn to the bottom of the backpack, the frame that carries the weight up the carbon fiber stays and to your load lifters so that it keeps the weight off of there. When this system is 100% intact and working, it is the most comfortable backpack that I have ever worn. However, we had 2 failures on that main carbon fiber stay on my thru hike, and they wound up having to send me replacement, not only of the carbon fiber stay, but also of the hip belt itself, because it started to saw through the hip belt on the back of it. And so I wound up having to replace the hip belt and the carbon fiber stay twice. Now that's unfortunately not the only failure that I had. Again, additionally, at the bottom of the backpack where the carbon fiber stays run vertically up the top of the backpack, I had a failure right here at this point on both sides of my backpack. And I think it was basically due to motion and the constant movement of the backpack while I was hiking. But eventually that carbon fiber stay wound up poking all the way through the bottom where it's sewn in right here. The stitching didn't fail, however, the material that it's held in with did wind up failing, and that carbon fiber stay wound up poking through the bottom of the backpack. When it happened on one side, I was able to reattach and fasten it in a way that got me a little bit further, but then it eventually wound up happening on the other side of the backpack, therefore the backpack failing altogether. Now, Zpacks as a company stood behind their product, and they did wind up shipping me this replacement backpack. However, when on a thru hike, having to deal with issues with the main thing that you carry all of your stuff in can be a huge headache. So these are all the pieces of gear that failed me on my Appalachian Trail thru hike. I hope this information helps you guys on your gear choices in your future endeavors. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys very soon.